A full crew in studio. Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, and Will Bowling. Robert Walsh is our producer, and we are pleased to be joined by Tennessee Titans President of Football Operations, Chad Brinker, kind enough to give us a few minutes on a very busy day. Chad, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good to see you. I know a busy few weeks, to say the least, for you guys over there.
It has been. Yeah, we've, we're really aggressive in this general manager search, trying to get ahead of those other teams, and it's just been a whirlwind the last 2 weeks.
Well, let's start with the guy that you got, and Chiefs assistant GM Mike Borgonzi. What stood out about him through this process?
Yeah, I met Mike in 2009. Had a lot of respect for him over the years. Our industry obviously is a small circle, and everybody knows everybody, and I just admired him from afar. But when he came through this process, he was just complete in every way as a candidate. Just the preparedness that he had coming into this interview. I think I said this before. I mean, he probably should have been a general manager 2 years ago. He showed up with this book that was like 260 pages of detailing everything about how to attack the job as a general manager. I mean, he laid out everything. It was just super impressive. He's a really good person, well-respected around the league, and obviously had a lot of success in Kansas City.
Chad Brinker in studio with us this morning here on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. You talk about the Kansas City success, and Patrick Mahomes gets so much of that attention, but there is so many other good things that organization has done in the time he's been there. What is underappreciated about their success, and how has Mike contributed to that?
Yeah, obviously they got a great head coach, and Andy Reid. If you remember, he was in Green Bay at one time. And, John Dorsey showed up there years ago, and that's where Mike kind of learned the Packer, draft and develop system, and they maintained that all the way through. Andy Reid was exposed to that in Green Bay. But it's just their process and how they approach that. I think, obviously, when you get a generational quarterback like that, it just changes your fortunes really quick. But they also had to draft that guy as well. And I think when John got there originally, they traded for Alex Smith. I think it was 2 second-rounders to get him, and then they end up drafting Patrick Mahomes after that. But really, like in any organization, it comes down to the quarterback, the head coach, and GM. And Mike has been in that inner cabinet for a lot of years now with Andy Reid and Brett Veach, Chris Shea, and Mike has been part of all those major decisions for at least the last 5, 6, 7 years now.
Chad Brinker in studio with us this morning. Chad, when it comes down to Mike Borgonzi being the GM here too, like coming from Kansas City, he's been there since 2009. Is there like an expectation of him getting this job and also trying to be in a position to replicate what Kansas City has?
Yeah, I think when we set out to identify the candidate that we're looking for as we prepare for this, there was basically like 9 attributes that we were grading all these candidates on. And Mike checked the box in all 9 of those. And one of the big things that was really important to us, because I discussed this with our owner, the draft and develop philosophy, it's not an original thing at all. It's, everybody talks about it, but can you truly execute it and be disciplined about it? And I think that part with Mike, he knew the language, and we spoke the same language. When we talked players, we knew exactly, when he said this guy's a 55, I know what he's talking about. We just had that common ground, that common language, and Mike really understands that system. He's kind of modernized it a little bit, and it's evolved a little bit during his time in Kansas City. But being able to blend the 2 organizations, it's been, Green Bay, 30 years of success, and Kansas City for over the last decade. It's the that's the one of the elites of our league right now, and Mike's a very smart guy. He's an Ivy League guy. Played the game. He's worked his way up. Didn't miss a step all the way through. He's held a lot of different positions in that organization, and I just felt like it was someone that can really push us forward, and I'm looking forward to working with him.
When you look at that situation, so you have a new GM, fresh new head coach, yourself in a role, and just a lot of change in general. How do you look at this process this time around as far as time? Because in this league, it does sometimes. Like I've seen guys get cut, go somewhere else and be better. How do you view this step for you guys as far as being allowed to let it grow?
Yeah, I think it starts up top. I've had a lot of conversations with our owner about this and what draft and develop system really means and what that looks like and the patience that it requires. But I also understand that there needs to be an urgency as well. That's hard to balance those two things, especially in the world that we live in right now. Everybody expects instant success. And like I said before, there's no quick fixes, especially when it comes to this. So, the process, ideally, if we could map it out perfectly, you'd really want about 30 picks over the next 3 years. And, 12 of those need to come in the top 100. And you got to be selective in free agents and find the right veterans to kind of balance out a young roster. If I can map it out perfectly, that's, you can get a generational, talent right off the bat. But sometimes it doesn't always work that way. So, but the system does work. And if you allow it to work. So, Amy is completely bought in to this philosophy. It's been tough. Yeah. It's been really tough the last couple years, and especially for her too. What she's been through and with the team and making the tough decisions that she's made. Nobody wants to be put in that position where you're changing out dignitaries every year and all that. That's not where we want to be. So hopefully we can get this thing moving in the right direction. I can't make any promises right now of where. How we're going to flip this thing in 1 year, 2 years. All I can promise is, that we're going to get to work. We're going to implement this system, and we'll ultimately be judged in the end.
Absolutely.
Chad Brinker joining us, President of Football Operations this morning on RK-Dub. I do have to ask the question because we are here for the fans as well. But just in terms of maybe what didn't work with Ran Carthon here, and why you guys decided to go in a different direction.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this. First and foremost, I have the utmost respect for Ran Carthon. He means a lot to me professionally as well as personally. He's a friend. And, this all happened so fast. And I think people forget there's a human element to all this. And I'm still trying to allow my thinking to catch up to my feelings, because the decision was made, and then immediately it was, Amy and I talked. She's like, we're going to go find a general manager, and I had to flip into we got to find a general manager mode, and Ran is, it's disappointing that we got to this spot, and I miss him, and like I said, he's a good friend. He's a bright football mind. We know what we signed up for in this league. This is a tough and unforgiving business. It's a hard business. You know that. Ron, you played in this league, and you understand what that's like. And I've heard people say it's a good business, but it's a difficult life. And I really understand what that means, and especially in the position that I'm in now. And they say it's lonely at the top. I'm kind of feeling that. I understand what that means a little bit now. But again, Ran... we won 3 games this year and 9 in the last 34. And ultimately, it just wasn't good enough. None of us was good enough, me included. We got to get better in all phases. And unfortunately, it ended up the way it ended up. And like I said, Ran and I've talked. He knows we're friends and we have great respect for one another. And I love his family. They're just great people. And it's just disappointing we got to this point.
Chad, when it comes to the title of general manager, I know, and I want you to clarify this, you have final say over the roster, correct?
That's
when it's
correct.
all said and done.
Yeah.
When it comes to maybe a decision that you and Mike Borgonzi come to, whether it's free agency or the draft, how do you guys go about maybe settling difference of opinions in terms of, since you do technically have the final say?
Yeah, a lot of people make a big deal about this.
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
Really?
I think it's going to be interesting when you all get a chance to talk to Mike later today. Let him talk about that, why this job was attractive to him. Andy Reid's got final say in Kansas City, and every organization, it's different. Sometimes a head coach has it, a general manager has it, an owner, Jerry Jones has it, now a president has it. So it's I think it's way overblown. And Mike will probably touch on that a little bit because we've talked about it. I think people think that, Mike's going to go up to the draft board and he's getting ready to pull a name tag off, and I'm going to run up there and slap his hand and say, no, we're taking this guy instead. That's not how this works. We're going to be working together through all this. Every decision that's made is going to be a we decision. Obviously head coach is going to be involved. we're going to be working on this together. I think the thing that you don't want happening, and especially what Amy doesn't want happening, is which could happen in organizations where a head coach runs up the back stairwell and the GM runs up the other side of the stairwell, and then she wanted a football executive that can handle that and manage those relationships, and we work together within the room. And one example, I talked to one of my mentors in this league, John Schneider. He went out to Seattle. He didn't have final say. Pete Carroll had it, and I asked him, like, how often did this actually come up? And he couldn't really remember a time where Pete just threw the hammer down on him. He said, sometimes there's going to be times you're going to disagree. You want that. You want healthy debate in the room and all that. But at the end of the day, if you just simply cannot come to an agreement on whatever that particular player, well, let's go find another player that we both agree on.
Chad Brinker, Tennessee Titans president of football operations, our guest this morning in studio. Chad, how many plans for the quarterback position did you hear from general manager candidates during the interview process? And what are some of the things that you and Mike are going to value in that position moving forward?
Yeah, it's the most important position in football, most important position in sports, really. So it's really key that we get that right. Obviously, we have Will Levis here. We got to continue to see him develop and grow, and he's going to get an opportunity to compete for a starting job next year. But at the same time, we got to do our due diligence on that position as well, whether that's in free agency or the upcoming draft. Every candidate we met with, we talked about these things and just kind of hear how they feel about the position, how they feel about Will, how they feel about the free agency class as well as the draft class. So there was a variance of the opinions throughout the process and some really good ideas on how to attack it. And Mike and I are going to work together, and that's something that we're going to it's priority number one.
As you guys hit the ground running, East-West Shrine Bowl practices getting started, Senior Bowl coming up as well. What is the first order of business for you and for Mike to be sure that this organization is ready for the big opportunity it has with the number one overall pick?
Yeah, we're leaving tomorrow night, and we're heading down to the East-West game. Shedeur Sanders is going to throw on Friday and do some interviews, so we'll get a chance to go down there and meet him. I got to see him this fall and spend some time at Colorado. I went out and saw a lot of these quarterbacks during the fall, but and then other players. I think I saw over 50 draftable players during the fall. But we're going to do the East-West together and then head down to the Senior Bowl right after that and evaluate these prospects. And as soon as we get back, we'll jump right into the free agency meetings with our pro staff, and that will run right into the college draft meetings. Our process is a little unique and different, maybe a little old school. We call it no daylight. And in the month of February, we'll be in that draft room literally the entire month, 7 days a week, 7 to 7. We're going through every prospect in the country at every single position, watching not key plays or highlight tapes. It's actual game tape. And we'll start at offensive tackles, and we'll work all the way across every position from the top of the board all the way through the undrafted free agent class as well.
So you said quarterback, the most important position, but you mentioned offensive tackle first. Okay,
gotta get your
we
love
gotta
on the
protect that
show.
quarterback. You know that.
You better believe it, Chad. With that being said, though, not to devalue the first number one overall pick, but how friendly is everybody towards you guys? Considering you do have the first overall pick, some teams want a quarterback, need a quarterback just as much as any other team in the NFL, man. I know we've talked before on the practice field about, hey, picks are important to a team. Mm-hmm. Your guys are important as far as the quality of picks you have. Mm-hmm. How, open are you to the idea that if somebody come calling, then you might answer that as far as moving back and collecting more picks?
Yeah, we got to look at all the options. But the one thing I will say, if there's a generational talent, you don't pass that up. You can't pass that up. And if we feel that there's a generational talent right there, what we call a blue player, a guy that is a franchise-type player, the player that tips the field in your favor every time they step on the field, you cannot pass that up. But we'll also look at all the options, not only at the number one overall pick, but in all the rounds. We got to see what the value is. We got to see what's on the table. We got to, do what's best for the Tennessee Titans and helping us build a football team that can sustain over time. And I've emphasized how important the draft is, that the core of this roster is going to be built through the draft. We're looking at all those options.
It may be a question for Mike Borgonzi, But I brought this up earlier just simply because you mentioned this league is a hard league on you in a lot of different ways. Mentally, physically, losing hurts. Families feel it. Everybody feels it. If you're presented with a situation between you guys where a guy like Jeffrey or Harold decide to, hey, they want to explore somewhere else. Like, where are you guys as far as keeping those guys Titans, or just saying to yourself, the value of this team is probably going to be better because we're able to accumulate picks because they want out and teams want them too?
Yeah, let me say this. I want us to get to a spot where we're homegrown in our own superstars. And with that being said, when it comes to Jeffrey Simmons and Harold Landry, as tough as this season was, those guys did not quit. Gotcha. They played hard all the way to the end. And there's just something about, when a franchise drafts you, they develop you, and then they ultimately pay you. Like, there's a loyalty there. And you can feel that in the locker room, like a Jeff and a Harold. Like, people, like, it just means more to guys like that. And that's the type of guys we want on our football team, that the young guys are coming in and seeing, well, that's how you act like as a pro. That's how you be a pro. Look at Jeff, look at Harold, look at these guys that have been here. They came in here, they were drafted by the organization, they were developed, and they were paid by them. And look how they're playing for the organization. It means more to guys like that.
Chad Brinker with us, Titans President Football of Operations. Chad, when it comes to the quarterback position, drafting a quarterback, and you have an opportunity to do that, and I know Mike Borgonzi was there when they drafted Patrick Mahomes, but Alex Smith was there and he sat behind him. Is there kind of a logic to how you'll go about this when it comes to possibly taking a quarterback early on, and what are you looking for if you do go that route?
Yeah, it's everybody knows where I grew up in this business and how we did it up north. Ideally, I watched, the Aaron Rodgers, he sat for 3 years, and then, we drafted Jordan Love, and Jordan Love sat behind Aaron for 3 years. I mean, I wish it can be that way. I can't predict what that's going to look like. But ideally, you'd like those young guys to sit. Even Patrick Mahomes sat for a year behind Alex Smith. So, yeah, ideally that would be great. Allow them, give them the chance to learn and how to be a pro, because it's really tough to go out there as a rookie and get thrown out there, and particularly, if you don't have your offensive line short up and you're just, teams are pressuring you and you can't protect, and it's just so much coming at these guys. It's hard to play that position, but it's a position where you definitely have to meet the physical requirements to play the position, but it's really a neck-up position. Like, the mental quickness and the instincts that you have to have. You got to be able to see things other people can't see, feel things that other people can't feel, and you recognize it. Everybody can recognize it. It doesn't take a scout to see that. The ones that are the great ones, when you watch a game on television, it's just some guys have a sixth sense, and they just feel things and they do things, and you're like, wow, that's pretty amazing. And that's the type of guy. Of course, arm strength, accuracy, and pocket mobility, and all those things come into play. But at the end of the day, it's the instincts. It's the spontaneous instincts. I mean, Bill Walsh talked about this a lot, and I had under Mike McCarthy, he worked for Bill Walsh and brought all these quarterback tapes. And I used to study them up in Green Bay. Their quarterback school is what they called it, and learned a lot during that time while watching those tapes and learning from Mike and the group there. But it really is a position that's neck up.
Chad, when it comes to looking at the overall roster right now, and I've heard you say many times, we want to build up right from the draft. We want to be homegrown. What's the part of the roster where you feel like they really need the homegrown love right now?
Yeah. We got a lot of holes in this roster we need to fill. We're never going to pass up on a good football player. But in this league, you win off the edges. You got to be able to protect the edges. You got to be able to get after the quarterback off the edges. You got to be able to take the ball away. You got to be able to score touchdowns. So, I mean, it's those premium players at premium positions that you can never have enough of them.
Chad Brinker in studio with us this morning on 104.5 The Zone. Chad, when you look at your resume and Mike Borgonzi's and just the pathway you guys took to the roles you're in now, feels like, just from listening to what you're saying, there are a lot of similarities in both of your backgrounds and the languages that you speak. What is the challenge in that, right, of speaking the same language? And there's this idea in this business, you never hire someone exactly like you. How much do you guard against that and still listen to outside and different perspectives within your organization as well?
Yeah, I think the goal was to find the absolute best general manager candidate that we can possibly find. And I always believe that you want to hire people that are smarter than you, that will push you and elevate your game as well. And I think Mike brings that. And sure, there is some similarities in our backgrounds, but my role has evolved. I spent a lot of time under Russ Ball in Green Bay and learning the executive side of this business. Mike has spent a lot of his time, even as the AGM, overseeing the personnel, college and pro, and that's what he does every day. He gets up and all he thinks about is building a roster and watching tape. My role has evolved. I can do some of those things, but I also have the salary cap background and background on the ops side, and just to be able to support him in those areas to allow him. So people don't. This industry is just it's exploded. It's growing. I mean, the coaching staff's size has doubled. The personnel staff size has doubled. Analytics, football information systems didn't exist a decade ago. Now you have those groups. Everything, equipment rooms doubled. A video group doubled. Like everything's just grown. And then you're asking a general manager, first-time general manager, to what got them that job is they're really good at identifying talent and picking the players, and then you bring them in the organization, you drop them in there and said, oh, by the way, you got all this too. Now, you got to fix this team because that's why you're here, is because the roster's not in great shape. So we need you to fix this team, but 80% of your day is figuring out everything else, and 20% of it is actually doing what got you the job in the first place. So, again, this setup that we have will allow Mike to really thrive in what he's really great at, and I can support him in that area, but also take those other things off his plate. So I'm looking forward to getting to work with him.
Well, Chad, there's no doubt there is not a front office in the NFL that has run more trap plays and run between the tackles as you guys. I mean, a fullback and a running back together, right?
Crazy.
I don't think there's anybody that's going to fill that gap and try to stop you guys running up the middle.
I mean, seriously, a fullback. Like, I'll be honest with you, it's one of them rosters. I'll be like, I don't know if I want to play for that dude. Like, fullbacks are maniacs. Okay, so I'll put that one. But
we'll run a lot of ISO.
Oh my gosh! With that being said, though, too, we're speaking about plays and everything. Where's Coach Brian Callahan in this equation as far as what he's asking of you guys too? Because a lot of what you guys do is what he's got to deliver upon. The planning for the types of guys that he wants going into this next year and potentially longer future for him here in Nashville.
Yeah, Brian and I got together prior to us starting the general manager search. He was involved in this too, and he was super impressed with Mike as well. But we talked a lot about how we're going to build this roster moving forward, and the importance of the draft and develop system. And Brian was in Cincinnati, which they didn't do a lot in free agency there. So he understood it. And they have small staff sizes there. I mean, he was out. He's going to he and Denard and Nick, and we got Peyton as well at McCollum. He's at the I think the East-West coaching there. So we got our coaches going out too. And Brian wanted to do that. He wants to get out and see these players as well. And we want him to do that. So Brian's going to be a major part of this as well. We believe in Brian. Obviously, we talked about this already. We all know every one of us has got to get better. Yeah. This year was not good enough. It's not good enough. And we know what can happen when those things, when you don't win. And we want to help Brian to grow into the head coach we believe that he can be. So he's obviously going to play a major part in this. That's our head coach. No doubt. Like I said, the quarterback, head coach, GM, like that in that order. Like it's the most important thing in your franchise.
Chad, one more thing from me. Do you guys plan on hiring an assistant general manager? And if so, what do they play in terms of their role?
Yeah, we're still working through all those things right now. I think there'll be more to come. We're not there yet, but there'll be more to come.
He is Chad Brinker, Tennessee Titans president of football operations, beginning a very busy day here with us on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Chad, really appreciate the time. Thank you.
Yeah.
I got one more.
Okay.
You knew I had to. Appease me real
I know
quick.
that look in his eye very well.
Yeah, right.
Of course, this is what offensive linemen do. We're here to break the ice, all right? Drake or Kendrick Lamar.
Of course you would.
That's my petty
We
side.
actually we were wondering what you listen to because we always play music
I say
coming
Drake.
in.
You go, Drake?
Yeah.
Go there. Here we go. Certified level boy.
Chad Brinker with us in
R&B
studio.
dancer.
love it.
I love it. You know that for next time we sit down with you, Chad, we really appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Chad.
More Ramon, Kayla, and Will coming up.